Well folks, this video is going to be mainly about a bloke called James Trackson and his influence on Queensland, and it was substantial, as you'll find out, from electrical engineering to acetylene to executions to telephones to hydroelectric power. The man was into everything but the bath. Started in England in 1857 and actually ended in Toowoomba. However, it ended right here, right now. So let's just spin around, because this is the final resting place of James, Katie and William. This is where the Trackson brothers ended up. Check out the video. I think you're going to like it. So you know what I'm going to say. Let's go. Well folks, we're just cruising in over Macca's at Newmarket. We're right above it here, and that's Sedgley Park. And where those brick flats are there, not the big ones, the little ones with the dark brick, that was the site of Sedgley Grove, which is where the Trackson family lived for a very long time. They built that in 1900. They bought the land off someone else. We'll have a little look at that. And this is the Brickworks, of course. Going to be a big development, all these lovely posh units there. Solve the housing crisis if you've got $1 million. But I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan. Love the chimney. It's not far from the city. Let's have a little look at some of the topology here. When I say I'm not a big fan, I don't care about luxury units. More power to you if you've got the money to live in one. But that rock wall is built in the Brisbane phyllite. Are we phyllite here? Narrowly Fernvale shales, actually. It's slightly metamorphosed, but there's clay in there because they were digging it to make bricks. So, you know, they're not going to be digging shale to make bricks. The fact that they're rock bolting this and spray creating it will tell you that it's not stable. If it was stable, they wouldn't have to do that. And the enemy of these high walls is water. If water gets in behind them, it's all over. So it'll be interesting to see the protection they put on top of this. You can see with the LiDAR how advanced those cliffs are, how they protect the water. Let's have a look at this, what it looked like a little while ago. Well, folks, we've got a cadastral map here from 1895. And Sedgley Park here is called Westwood Lodge because that's what it was. There's a house there. It was owned by a bloke called Samuel Snide. He'd owned it since 1859. Unfortunately, he'd passed away by now, so the Tracksons bought it off him. And it was quite an extensive property. As you can see here, I'll mark the boundaries. So as you can see, it's a fairly decent sized property. I don't remember how many acres it is, but that's a fair bit of land. But then, of course, something happened. The railway came through, approximately here. We'll have a better look at that in a minute. And I think you can see the bit that got chopped off when the Brisbane Brickworks came and said, hey, can we have your land? They sold it. Well, here we are, folks, above Sedgley Park in 1936. That's the Newmarket School and where Macca's is nowadays, up on Kelvin Grove Road. And let's have a look at the little bridge. It's still there. It got knocked down there. There's a new one there, which you'll see in a video later on. And there's Sedgley Grange, the actual house, and its gardens around it. Beautiful place. Here's the farm buildings with the little dam. That little dam is still there. It's actually in the road. You can see it. Let's have a look at the row of bunya pines here now. So, you know, there's a lot of it still there. It's an amazing place. A lot of Brisbane's history. And, you know, it's a park, and it's used by hundreds of people every day, and I'm damn sure they don't know what they're walking through. So anyway, let's go and have a look in detail at some of this stuff. So folks, here we are, aerial photograph, 1951. Let's just zoom down a little. I've upscaled this slightly so we'll be able to zoom down, and you can see the brickworks there, the quarry they've dug, and that is Sedgley Grange. Some of the outbuildings are gone now, but that is the Grange itself. It was knocked down in 1990.
Comercial Time. And snap! The job's a game.
Hey folks, as you all know, a spoonful of coffee makes the medicine go down. Well, it makes T-Rocks more productive, that's for sure. Just scan that QR code or click on the link in the description and you can help me become more productive as a YouTube creator. That robin, by the way, that little bird, was a member of the family. Its name was Robin Banks. Well, we're going to talk about James Trackson in particular. Now, there's a lot of Tracksons. There was his brother. There was a bunch of kids. But we'll just focus on James because this video is not unlimited in length. So James Trackson, well, he was born in Norwich, in England, in 1857, quite a long time ago. He was educated at the King Edward VI Grammar School at Sedgley Park, near Wolverhampton. Now, who else came from Wolverhampton? Well, there were these guys and this bloke a little while later, I think. And then he went on to study at the famous London Polytechnic, where he graduated in science. That was easy in those days. They didn't know much. Coming to Australia in 1880, Mr. Trackson assisted in setting up the first telephone exchange in Melbourne. I mean, you can imagine in 1880 wiring a telephone exchange, the arduous task that must have been. It's a fairly arduous task in the 2020s. He moved up to Brisbane in 1884 to assist in establishing the telephone exchange in Brisbane. In 1885, he started his own business, just electrical business. And in 1886, he was engaged in the installation of the electric light system in Parliament House. So if you understood electricity in those days, you were it. You were the guy. In 1887, he was joined by his brother William, and they changed the name of the business to Trackson Brothers, which had stayed for quite some time. On the 16th of July 1888, James got married to a Brisbane girl, Catherine McGrath, Katie as she was known, at the Cathedral of St. Stephen's. That was just finished. A photo of it here at that time in Brisbane. She was a Brisbane girl, an Irish family. In 1898, very interestingly, at Thargomindah, way out west. Have you ever been to Thargomindah? It's a long way out. A local and very talented boilermaker and blacksmith called Joe Hood rebuilt and moved a local hydro power plant, and this used the power in the artesian water to spin a turbine and make electricity. Then the water went on to be used for animals and whatever. Now, the Trackson brothers then went on and did the installation and wiring of all the street lighting in Thargomindah, and at that time it was one of the very first systems on Earth to be powered by artesian water and to have street lighting in a town as small as Thargomindah. It's not a big town today, and it wasn't any bigger then, I'll tell you. Yeah, so and that same hydro plant still runs today. You can go and visit it. There's a beautiful museum there run by some local people. It still works. So, you know, pretty good gear. And if you're ever in Thargomindah, you really should go and see that plant. In 1900, James built his house, and it was built in a property over at Newmarket called Sedgley Park, and they called the house Sedgley Grange. Grange being the word for a group of farmhouse buildings, or in the very early days a granary, but later on it was a farmhouse with a bunch of buildings around it was called a grange. He called it Sedgley Grange, and he bought the property on Enoggera Road there, and it's now called Sedgley Park, and there's a park there, Newmarket Olympic swimming pools in there. You wander around, you'll see the old house pads. It's amazing. And he bought that off a bloke called Samuel Sned. And he was the Chief Constable of Police in Brisbane, and he went on to become the Governor of the jail. And it was originally called Westwood Lodge. You'll see a map that has the word Westwood Lodge on it. But he couldn't have bought it off Sam Stead because he was dead by 1885. He probably bought it off his estate, I would think. So Sedgley Grange was built in Sedgley Park, which is now Sedgley Park. For a little while it was called Trackson Park. We'll have a look at that in a minute. One thing to remark is that there was always an Aboriginal community there in the park. Well, just to the south of where the park is now, there are now houses there. And it was a sub-camp of the Enoggera group of Aboriginal campings. And of course, Enoggera is the Aboriginal word for a corroboree place. And the Tracksons had a very benevolent relationship with the local Aboriginal people. He was known to King Jackie Delaney and King Sandy, and they were both known to be in that camp from time to time. Trackson was a very interesting man. He bought the first automobile into Queensland. It was powered by steam, called Locomobile 2, which landed from England in the 1890s. He was driving around Brisbane streets in a steam-powered automobile. He then bought a two-cylinder Dijon Bouton in from France, which was gasoline-powered. Where the hell he got gasoline from, I don't know, but anyway. It used to be used as a medicine in those days, I think. And he bought that in 1900. So this guy was, although he didn't have the first driver's licence in Queensland, which is disappointing, he was a magistrate and a pretty wiggy guy, so yeah, I think he's doing all right. I won't get into all of his achievements. There is much written about him online, but a very interesting guy. In the days of capital punishment, there was a problem. Sometimes when they executed prisoners, they uncooperatively didn't break their necks. They just strangled themselves to death on the end of the rope, which is very traumatising for the people watching, not to mention for the poor guy on the end of the rope. So Trackson actually calculated a bunch of tables for the hangmen to use as to how far the drop has to be to ensure the neck will break, but you won't actually tear the guy's head off, which has also happened. And they were known as the Trackson drops, and they were used in Queensland to execute people until we stopped doing it in the 1960s, I might add, but anyway. And he went on, many children, many grandchildren. He passed away in Toowoomba at the age of 84 in 1941. So a great life, and even though he was from England, he's a great Queenslander. Now I have a connection to Tracksons because when I was a young nipper trying to get into electronics, yeah, there was Dick Smith, though they weren't here, but there was Kit Sets and places like that. But they were over at Bundamba, Buranda, you're right. But there was Tracksons. Tracksons got into radio during World War II, and they stayed in it. And I went in there one day looking for a specific part. I couldn't get it. Kit Sets, there was no JK in those days, or Dick Smith. And a lovely man called Laurie Stibby. Laurie, if you're still out there, mate, I've never forgotten you. He just took me under his arm and said, you got to understand this stuff and whatever. And he happened to live in the same suburb I did. And he sort of mentored me in electronics for quite some time. And that was my relationship with Tracksons. That was in the 1970s, probably 75, 76, maybe 74. I can't remember exactly when. But yeah, and they moved then out to Zilmia. They had a big warehouse near Pineapple Street. And then they went away. I moved out of Brisbane. I lost track of them. So there you go. Anyway, let's have a bit of a look at some of the other interesting stuff in the vicinity of where Sedgley Grange was, because there's some stuff going on there now, I tell you. You're there. Hey folks, behind me is the new Frederick Street Bridge. The old one's well old and well fallen down, they had to pull it down. We're at the top of what was Sedgley Park. We're going to go down and just have a wander through where the old buildings were and where the Sedgley Grange was, and see what we can see in the landscape, because I'm sure there's some evidence still there. Matter of fact, you know, if I wasn't sure there's evidence here, I wouldn't be here. So just walking down this hill, what we've got over here, I'll spin you around. Sorry, the sun's there, I apologise. Look at that. That's the Brickworks. Probably a big black mob, but we'll go over there a bit and see if we can find our way onto the side. Anyway, it's a beautiful morning. It's in May. It's lovely and cool. It's probably about 12, 13 degrees. Just a lovely morning to be out. We're just walking down this street, which is now called Frederick Street. This was not Frederick Street. Frederick Street went across that bridge, went on up the hill. Of course, when the railway line came through, that all had to change. Something to look out for is what I'm walking under now. These are mango trees, but they're quite mature mango trees. These places, these will be easily 60 or 70 years old. As a rule, we don't plant mango trees on the side of roads. We plant them in people's backyards. So yeah, just this sliding little hill I've walked down here. We can start to see evidence of people who've been here for quite a while. Get run over. What's the matter? Funny enough, people don't like coming into with cars. Not sure why. So here we are. This is just a little turn in Frederick Street. And I'm going to show you a few things here that are interesting. And I'll refer back to some maps, and I may pop them on the screen for you. This house behind me here is an original house, although it's been heavily modified. It's had a brick base put under it. It's had an extension put on it. Northern Gun Railway lines, you get that. But this is an original house, and I'll show it to you on the map, so I'll pop it on the screen. And just behind me here, which is a nice modern new block of flats, this was the shed, the farm shed and the farm buildings, and I'll show you in a second where the dam was, the farm dam. Anyway, let's have a walk down there a little further and talk more about this. So Sedgley Grange, as you've probably already heard through the video, was the home of the Trackson family. And James Trackson, or Jim, to his friends.
What's your name?
Well, my name is Jim, but most people call me Jim.
Was a fairly influential person in Brisbane's development. He was the Brisbane Electrician. I'll just spin you around and show you this street sign here. And to give you some context, we've got it. Yeah, we've got it. Moran Street was Water Street on our old 1895 map. Frederick Street didn't exist. It went across the road. Let's keep walking, because we'll do this in one cut. Let's do an Alfred Hitchcock rope scene here. No cuts. Don't know if any of you guys watch a guy called James Hoffman, a coffee guy in London. His recent video was 7 minutes, no cuts, no jumps, no nothing, and scene changes in the background while you were watching. Just amazing. So this little house here, just watching the gutter here, this little house behind me here with the Ipswich lawn ornament in the driveway. This was where the lagoon was, and we'll look in the landscape and we can see it. So if you look at the road here, it's cut right in because this is a creek. It's an old watercourse, and I assure you, when it rains really heavily, it's still a watercourse. Guarantee it. So yeah, there's the old Brickworks chimney there. So you can see here where the watercourse was. It was just here. And where these very elegant flats are now, if you like cubism, just here is where the shed was, the farm shed, where the vehicles were kept and the horses were stabled and the cattle. He bred cattle. And he was badly gored by one once, so nearly lost his life. So it wasn't all beer and skittles. We're heading down what is now Moran Street, as I said before. And a lot of people see a street just over there called Sedgely Street, thinking, oh, that was the driveway. No, it's not. This is the driveway. And these fairly innocuous looking, I might have called them ugly once, brick flats here is where Sedgley Grange was. I won't go in there because A, there's nothing to see, and B, it is private property. Got to respect that. People wander around my place with a camera. Not really into that. So yeah, behind us we have the farm buildings. We have the side of the Grange. What we're going to do now is we're going to walk through the park because the old driveway is actually here. And more importantly, the bunya pines are still here. She's a brave person that cuts down a bunya pine in Brisbane and in the history of Brisbane. A very brave person. So let's go and have a look. Folks, you can see over my shoulder there, that little street is Sedgley Street. And you can see an avenue of pines. I'll spin you around. There's an avenue of pines here that go from Sedgley Street right down to Newmarket Road. So it would be an easy assumption to say that's the old driveway lined with pines. It's not. And we'll see it in the maps. And trouble, not all these pines are the correct pines. Some of them are bunya pines, some of them are Norfolk pines. The Norfolk pines are the real ones. Do that again. The bunya pines are the real ones. So as you can see, folks, there's the driveway down between those trees. They are bunya pines. We'll just lift up onto these things. They are well old enough. They were planted in the 1890s. Probably, by the way, by Mr. Snide, the guy before Trackson. Trackson probably picked them up because I've seen some photos in the early 1900s, and these are fairly mature trees then. He didn't plant them. They were planted by someone else. So these are the big drains at the bottom of Sedgley Park. Two things I'll point out. These things are enormous. There are big pipes underneath this. And that rise there is not natural. That's been put there. But what this is, apart from being a dog park, is this is a flood spill basin. When the rain comes in faster than it can ever possibly leave, this fills up. And I would say by the looking of this, it could fill up to 3 metres, which is a metric crap ton of water. So anyway, this is what became of Sedgley Park property. I would suggest that back in the 1800s, the same thing happened, except the flood ran down the hill. And it's not at all the houses downstream. Not anymore. Okay. I don't want to know. So folks, here's the levee, and it truly is a levee that holds back all of the water in Sedgley Park spill basin. And I saw this structure up on the hill, curious to what it was. I came up to have a look. And there's the Newmarket swimming pool there, lovely place. So why do they go to all the trouble of building this? They're galvanised steel rails on the bottom there. It's not the top's dogs running through. This is a spillway. When this park fills up and looks like it's going to go over, this is where they vent the water. Naturally, it just goes straight out through here. Which is pretty amazing, I think, that they thought we'd get that much water. Here we are, folks, Toowong Cemetary, where most of Brisbane's early stories end. An amazing place. Go over there one Saturday, have a wander around. Here they are, they're all here. AMDG, by the way, means Ad Majorem Dei Glorum, which is to the greater glory of God in Latin. Here's Bill, he died quite a bit earlier, poor old fella. So there you go, the Tracksons are all here. I'm going to put an offering on that grave one day. I'll get over there and I'll film it. So here they were. Kitty used to drive that car. Isn't that amazing? You know, a woman driving a car back in those times. Fantastic. Here it is, Sedgley Grange with the Trackson family, and over their shoulder, by the way, is the hill that the Brickworks is now in. So the Brickworks is going to be a separate video. I tried to incorporate it in this, but it's just too complex. There's going to be a separate video on the Brickworks, which of course was owned by the Tracksons to start with. So anyway, T-Rocks Tuesdays, live Tuesday night, 8 o'clock-ish. Be there or be square. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks now, having great fun. If you dig the vibe, like and subscribe. And you know what I'm going to say. Keep rocking. T-Rocks out.